to, we could talk a little bit about following up on the founder NFT project that we were talking about last week. And I also kind of wanted to. Am I totally muted? Okay. I was saying the next, I put down two things on the agenda for this week, and that one was the following up on the founder NFT discussion we had last week, and then also I also was kind of curious to pick Crystal's brain a little bit about Unlock Protocol. But did anyone else have anything? Is there anything I'm missing that's more pressing that we want to touch on?
I mean, I'm looking at the points that were just added to the Miro board. I assume it's Crystal who added them. I saw the post.
I haven't looked at that yet. Yeah, let me see if I can. Let's see. If you got it up, can you screen share it?
Yeah, I can do that. Here.
I'm on a spotty.
It says host disabled.
Yeah, I'm on a spotty connection, so I'm just going to hop onto my computer. So I'll be back in just a minute.
Okay.
Okay.
It says host disabled participant screen sharing. So I don't know if there's something on.
Oh, that's because you pissed me off. Let's see.
What we won't talk about what you shared last time, Spencer.
Maybe we don't want to talk about that.
Yeah, you're on probation.
I just made you a co-host. Does that give you the power to do it?
Yeah, here, let's see. Yeah. Is this? Change system preferences. Okay.
Sorry to spring this on you.
Oh no, it's fine. I think it's easier rather than having to just talk about it. Okay. So I need to restart Zoom to share it, but then I'll be good.
Okay.
Okay, now I should be able to share. Oh, I need to be made a co-host again. Okay.
Yeah, try it now.
Yeah. There we go. Are you seeing the Miro board?
Yeah.
Okay, so I assume these are the ones that Crystal added because I saw before all of this.
Yeah, I just added those right before our call. So I think they make sense. They're probably better in a Word doc, but I just threw it all
No, I totally like this direction. And I'm thinking about like how this can work with a bunch of different photojournalism NFT collections. And I mean, one thought that came to mind, I wanted to finish reading these, so I'm making sure that I'm not repeating something that you already said. But if there's some way to build in some kind of, if not a discount to a, like the founder pass could have maybe some discount or some early access. I'm also thinking maybe there's some way to have, and maybe this is too complex and not worth it. Maybe there's some way to have almost like a draft-like system where like the longer someone with a founder NFT goes without claiming one, the more of a chance they'd have to claim one from the next release. I mean, I don't quite understand how this works in sports leagues, but I understand that like those who don't get the good draft picks this time have a higher chance of getting them next time. Maybe there's some kind of dynamic like that can be built in, but it could just be too complex and not worth the trouble.
No, I like that idea. I wouldn't know technically how to do that, but that definitely makes like a lot of sense. And two, this actually might work really well with what Jennifer's talking about. If this concept actually works, and basically it's like you have a traveling exhibit and the DAO is in charge of the contract, and attached to this contract is all the artwork that's curated. Then that would also work in the scenario that Jennifer's talking about. We could show them how to set that up, and then as part of the setup process, a percentage goes into the JournoDAO treasury for every NFT that's sold from the collection that they set up.
Yeah, I like that idea too. I think this is cool. I like the art
I
collective.
haven't looked at this at all until right now. Could you kind of walk us through it, Crystal?
Yeah, sure. So basically this came up because I was in a couple of women only exhibits in December and then again in March or January, February, somewhere in there. And basically it was a collective of women that were curated, and then they had to, or we had to upload our art to the gallery's own contract. And then the gallery was in charge of everything. So then we were kind of beholden to the gallery, and the first gallery was great. The second gallery was a train wreck. So then we realized that our art was stuck in their contract. So I just kind of came up with this idea where, what if, the collective creates their own smart contract. We curate the art that is then minted by us to the contract. And then basically that would be the same as us driving around with a giant van filled with artwork and going to different galleries around the country to have exhibits. The gallery itself, that is an NFT gallery, would then just use our contract, deploy it to show the artwork. And then anything that sells rolls through, our multi-sigs, and it goes where it needs to go, into the treasury, into the artist, and then a little bit back to the gallery. And then the collective could also be sold through like Artiva, which will allow you to connect the smart contract to a marketplace. So the artwork is always accessible for sales. And then you can do promotions to sell the artwork there as well. So it's basically like a traveling exhibit, only the vehicle is the smart contract. Does that make sense?
Yeah, okay, so it's kind of like flipping it's flipping the normal dynamic with a gallery on its head.
Exactly. Where the collective has control of the art and the smart contract. But then the gallery doesn't have to do the work either. They don't have to do as much work, because setting up these contracts, getting 50 artists trying to get 50 artists who aren't necessarily Web3 fluid to mint their artwork to like OpenSea, that's a dumpster fire. So this, the gallery doesn't have to do anything but promote. And then they can bring in more traffic, especially for something like journalism or photojournalism, because it's bridging, multiple genres, so multiple worlds.
Okay, and so I guess for the benefit of Troy and Jennifer, who are seeing this for the first time, what we're talking about here is the screen share still on? No. Let me see if maybe I can, because I've got it up now. Let me see if I can do it. Sorry. Here we go. Okay. So back to here. Okay, can everyone see the orange box in the middle?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so what we're talking about here is since you've been gone, Troy, we've been talking about basically doing an NFT launch and sale where we put together, and these numbers aren't like set in stone, but the basic idea was we could sell if we could sell like about $1,000 NFTs for $1,500 to $2,000 per NFT dollars. I think, so that's close to like 1 ETH right now. Then that gives us about the same budget that we were asking for through that grant. So the benefits kind of look over here. Basically, main benefit for us is to establish our treasury, and then we've also discussed this holding this NFT also gives you certain voting rights within the community. There's some more nuance to that, but and then also, so what folks would get for purchasing one of our founder NFTs is basically it's like a lifetime pass to everything that JournoDAO ever does. whether it's like workshops, virtual workshops, or some kind of subscriber content, access to any live events that we might do, who knows what else. And then so what we were just starting to get into, what Crystal was describing as some of the specs of how this NFT would actually look, what it would look like. And we discussed, that the NFT itself would feature artwork from photojournalists. Okay, so that brings us to, so how would that, okay, so how would this look, Crystal, if what is somebody, so somebody's buying the NFT and it's from it's a collection of 1,000, and are we imagining a collective of photojournalists would designate 1,000 works from their separate works, or like more like maybe it's like just like 5 works, and then there's 200 editions of each one? What do you think?
I hadn't really gotten that far into it,
Okay.
honestly. You could do it 2 ways. You could just do founder NFTs as a separate outside of what I just described, and then this ongoing NFT collective as just like this living art exhibit that perpetually generates money for the treasury. And that way your founder NFTs are slightly separate, and then you'd have more control over the parameters that you're talking about. And then those could also be built probably easier on top of Unlock. Because the thing that I just laid out with those stickies in Miro, it probably can be done on Unlock. But I was thinking of some other more easier to manage platforms like Manifold, where it lets you deploy the smart contract a little easier, especially if we're going to test this concept and then maybe teach other people how to do this. It's almost easier to keep it separate, if that makes sense.
Okay, so you're describing like with the collective and the green stickies over here, that's almost like a separate project where basically it's like, okay, this is, JournoDAO is kind of spotlighting we're basically the gallery in the
Exactly.
metaphor, right? Okay.
Yeah, because that's just something I pulled out of my ass. So I don't even know if the concept works. It just seems like it would work based on the experiences that I had with these curated exhibits. For the founder NFT, I would be more comfortable building that on, tech that's a little more solid and that is specifically for something like a membership NFT.
Yeah, maybe one way that they relate is that the founder NFT gives you like a discount on any of the purchases you might make, or like early access, just some benefits to that, and or any other project like that we end up doing.
Yeah, that would be perfect. Because it would also be faster to deploy founder NFTs separately and then build this other thing over here. It could even be an experiment with something like a project with Jennifer. That way we don't have to, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Our treasury isn't dependent upon that thing from the get-go.
Maybe also the founder NFTs could function as almost like lottery tickets for there's a chance you can get one out of a certain collection, and maybe that can be part of the utility for the founder NFT.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, I feel like the founder NFT will just end up being like a huge deal. I mean, deal as in like you get a lot of value for it, just because we're going to come up with so many of these ideas in the next like 6 months or whatever, and like every time we have a new idea, it's like, oh, and then the founders get this, and then the founders get that, and they're just going to pile on cool stuff for like, I don't know, it'll play itself out quickly. Yeah.
Yeah, you can make founders NFTs non-transferable, so that way people can't sit there and try to speculate on them.
Yeah, I think we were talking about that, but part of the Kevin Rose proof model would be that you kind of want them to be traded so that you get the royalties as like recurring revenue. So anytime like one changes hands, then the JournoDAO treasury gets a percentage of that.
Yeah, that's a good point. I've seen another DAO do one that they use. They have 3 different tokens in their DAO. They have a currency token. They have a kind of a reputation token, which would kind of be like a founder token that designate what skills they're good at. That's non-transferable. And then they have a governance token that is transferable. So that was kind of an interesting concept to have like a 3 token DAO. I've never seen that before.
I swear I've also seen somewhere where you have an NFT that is only transferable once within a certain time period. So like you could only transfer it like once a year or something. That could be interesting. And then that kind of, you know, that kind of adds a little
Time
scarcity
gating
to it. Yeah. So it's almost like that's almost like a way of doing like term limits in a way. Like you have to decide once a year if you want to continue to be a founder level supporter, or if you know somebody else is, you know, more into it and willing to pay for that. I mean, that's I'm sure there's some potential downsides to that, but it's kind of an interesting thing to explore.
Probably just limits our revenue from it. If you're only getting one transaction a year that's potentially profitable, although that single transaction might be like more volume, but I think we're definitely headed towards like a multi-token future, not just JournoDAO, probably a lot of other places, but yeah, I think like scoping a token and its mechanics to like a specific use case instead of like carrying along financialization just for fun or just by default, I think is probably the right move. So I think we would have this, which would be transferable or purchasable, and then our governance token would not be, to try and keep like decision making from being part of the speculation and like financial incentives. But then I think we've also talked about a few other use cases for yet other tokens, like maybe a reputation token, maybe like and from us it would be like a journalistic like integrity token or something like that.
And if we decided to do delegation, then, you know, like we talked about last time, you know, the founding NFT holders might have a higher delegation than say a reputation one. It's also a possibility.
Is it worth exploring some way to distinguish founder NFTs from maybe press passes or different levels of press passes? Like if we can have, because like in principle, if you have transferable founder NFTs, then they stop kind of meaning that whoever holds them are founders. If like down the line, it's had like some founder NFT that's been passed on a few times.
You can make that tier. Yeah, you can make that tier as an attribute. And this ERC 721 is the actual foundation NFT, and ERC 998 is the attribute. So say, for instance, you had like a character, and that's the base character, and then you want to add sunglasses. You know, that's the ERC 998 built up into it. And so you could do the same thing with these types of things, like these tier levels.
Oh, that's cool. So it would be like modular membership passes.
Exactly, yeah.
That's very cool. Man, I think there's a way we can go about this where we have like if we want these NFT, if we want some NFT pass to designate like a founding group, it would make sense to me that those would be non-transferable, but then there should also be some way that we can get royalties from having these circulate in secondary markets. Maybe they're just 2 different things. I don't know.
Yeah, you could do like a non-transferable pairing with like the transferable one that they can sell as well, so that they'll always have like that founder NFT, but then like somebody who purchases it later like won't have that. So then we'd be able to gate different things around that. Like if you hold both of those things or whatever, then that's better than if you just like bought it off secondary.
And then this also may give us some opportunity. I don't know if you guys agree in terms of being discerning about who's getting the founder NFT, or if it's just whoever's interested enough to buy it. But maybe there's some opportunity here to kind of ensure that the founding group of people are people that are aligned with JournoDAO's mission, rather than approaching it speculatively. But maybe that's less of a priority than just generating funds for the treasury.
I mean, you can simply have a a whitelist. You got to apply to be on the whitelist to even have a chance. That obviously reduces the potential fundraising a bit, but I think it's a discussion worth having. I mean, the community so far has been pretty, it's definitely curated, and I don't really feel like it's, maybe other people feel differently. I don't feel like we've suffered too much by not throwing open the doors.
It's like just a matter versus short term, long term. I think all of us here are thinking pretty long term, so it wouldn't make sense to like bypass an opportunity for like finding our like long term crew just to like generate some revenue early on, especially since I don't know, we don't have any expenses. Like anything we want to spend money on is just like stuff that we dream up that would be cool. And I think in the long term, that sort of effort that we put in now is going to be like make everything more valuable later on. So I'm totally into slow playing it and like making it pretty obscure or like difficult to join or whatever, and then only the people who stick around are the people who are like really resonate with what we're doing. And yeah, I think that'll pay off in the long term for sure.
And
Yeah,
just so everyone, sorry, just so everyone knows, like I'm actually, because I mean it's basically just me looking at a database of people who apply to join the community right now, and like I've said this before, but like my only discerning thing is like you just have to be human and show like some actual interest. And that's part because like we've actually never had a conversation about who should be allowed to join and who shouldn't. I mean, maybe it's approaching time to actually start talking about criteria or like setting up a committee to review those things. But my philosophy has been like, well, like as long as you don't just out and out tell me you're only here to speculate on tokens, which two people, like that was their actual application, and those are the two people that I didn't approve. But everyone else, has been like, even if somebody's just like, I think journalism's important, like that's enough so far. So, but I mean, the time may be coming when we need to actually start talking about criteria.
Well, I would advocate for like just a series of concentric circles and not, I think there should always be something for everyone, perhaps even token speculators or whatever. But it's like, if you're only interested in that, then like you stay like in the outer rings. And then like, as you like want to have more say, you want to have like more access, then I think that's when you start like just putting up these little filters to make sure that like the inner circle communities are not just kind of blown up by these people who are just kind of flying by and come in for a week or even just like a month or two and then think it's really cool and then bounce or whatever. It's like, I think we should have some level of engagement for those kinds of people. But they just wouldn't be like on, judging things of consequence if they haven't like, opted in for the long term, and in whatever way we say, once you do this, that means you're kind of like, you've got a 10 to 20 year mindset. But if you've only done this, like you're probably only thinking like, in the short term for yourself, which is fine. But that just means that like, you shouldn't have a say in all this other stuff.
Yeah, I mean, for lobby 3, like to your concentric circles point, there were like a 3-tiered NFT membership sale, and like the bottom tier was 0.07 ETH to mint. And there was an unlimited amount of those. There was a middle tier that was 1 ETH, and there was like a limited amount of those that didn't sell out. And then there was a top tier one, a tier 3 one that was 40 ETH, and those were like sold to like institutions and stuff, and kind of more like actual deals being made rather than just open to minting. But like that, in that case, there were a lot of people that bought the bottom tier and the middle tier that were just expecting short-term gains. And I think like if we do open up to that kind of person, then we may be kind of beholden to, like, at least in the case of Lobby 3, there was like a contingency of token holders early on that were kind of demanding this constant, almost like pageantry of showing that there's economic growth, there's investment growth in this, because they're just approaching it from a speculative perspective rather than really having any concern with the mission or the impact whatsoever. And I mean, it's something that we may be able to find a way to avoid that while still letting people access it for speculative reasons. But I just think that that could be something that compromises, or at least makes it difficult to focus on like impact related missions.
Well, again, an example might be that, we do like personal interviews or something with the people who we're considering for like the Soulbound founder NFT. And we vet those like heavily, but then we don't really care about the secondary market for like the sellable NFT that goes along with that. And so I think there's a way to cut it where you can kind of benefit from all the like degen activity without actually giving them any keys to the kingdom or whatever, and not feeling beholden to them in any way, where it's just like, we're over here creating value, and like we definitely want to capture like the second and third order effects of that value. But if we listen to those people on the outer circles, that will like diminish the value here. So it's actually like whatever we need to do to protect that sort of long-term vision.
It's funny because that's actually it's analogous to the way journalism works too. Like if you were to just listen to your audience and your readership all the time, I mean, everything would be fake news. So you kind of gotta, there's always a balance, and the balance is, part of the reason we're here is that balance probably isn't healthy right now, but like it still is like, it kind of works in the same way. Like there's an editorial process, just like there could be a curation process to make sure we have the right people for governance.
And that can also be somewhat managed through the membership aspect of the token. That can be built into where, certain aspects of the community are token gated. So that, like, say you bought the speculative or the cheapest NFT, in order to get into some of the deeper conversations on the Discord, you would have to have like legitimate engagement. And you can set the bot up so that, once they're in, that part's token gated, but then once they engage with the community actively, they can then move into different deeper aspects of the community. If that makes sense. So that way we can kind of filter out, people can speculate all they want, and they can have an open channel on Discord somewhere where they can speculate. But then to get into the deeper conversations of governance, proposals, and all that, you either have to be actively engaged or you have to have bought that higher level NFT token for that access.
So this is something that I'm kind of struggling with, which is some people have approached me about different Discord bots that kind of automatically manage your participation, and kind of like almost like a more automated coordinate type thing. But I think that's tough for us since we're trying to offer on-ramps that aren't through Discord. So like how could something like that work if things aren't necessarily centralized in Discord?
I'd have to like whiteboard that out, but like let's say that let's say 3/4 of the conversations are happening on Discord, and let's say a deeper governance conversation is just happening, like, I can't remember the name of the newer platform, but just say element. Then to get access to the element, you would have to be actively engaged. So that would kind of be almost be a manual process.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't be volume either. And then you would token gate the main access to the Discord through the different type of NFT that they purchased. And then there could be the bot within the Discord that could then manage how they would move throughout the channels. And that doesn't have anything to do with the NFT. It could, but it doesn't have to.
Yeah, I mean, this is, I feel like this is where it like becomes a tool problem, because like token gating is all awesome until like you run into the spots where like you have to do like a manual workaround. And I feel like we might run into that more than most.
And at that point, you have community managers too, and you're scaling to that size. I mean, there's a budget for community managers. That's what we used in Unlock. So we had, we had the token gate to get into the server, and then our mods were always helping people walk through that process. And then once they're in there, we had bots that would help move people around, but the mods were always keeping an eye on things. So once you're at scale, you just let the humans do it.
Yeah, it becomes a scaling thing, because that community manager really is a full-time job. I saw I got a snapshot vote. Maybe you saw this guy, some of the snapshot votes on Forefront, where you're voting for the salaries of some of the full-time people. They're making good money. It's a little shocking. I mean, good for them, but it's like, wow, that's you need a serious treasury for that.
It's a 24/7 thing. I did it part-time at Unlock for 9 months, and I was so exhausted by the end of it. I love the community, but between that and school, I was like, oh my God, I'm just going to be a puddle soon. So yeah, it's 24/7 for sure.
I did want to say, I think it's interesting how this the collective traveling gallery or traveling exhibit model that you worked out there in the green stickies. It does seem like it could layer on top of what Jennifer was describing pretty easily, if not for like kind of a proof of concept for what you've laid out, because it's kind of what you're talking about, but with like one less layer of complexities, because sounds like it would just be all art from just a couple of sources instead of a collective of artists. So that could layer on top of that quite well.
Yeah, and if the concept actually works, I mean, that's a great just revenue generator. If you can onboard Web 2s into Web 3 in this capacity, give them the empowerment to control their contract, know what that actually means, and then take that contract to in real life spaces, or even just sell it online completely virtually. I mean, that is a big revenue generator for them. And then if a percentage comes back into the treasury because we helped them set it up initially, that is in perpetuity. It could just be 5%, but over time that can accumulate when you have continuous, if this is a viable business model, you could just keep doing that and showing people how to do it. And then the money can kick back here.
So I'm thinking now, now that I'm like trying to catch up and see what you guys have done, this is actually pretty cool. And it's getting me thinking creatively, like the notion of having an NFT collection that is JournoDAO specific. I could see it being a compelling prospect to have a bit of like a stock media library that could be a collection of iconic images or video of topical things. Like, I'm thinking when I was coming back home to New Mexico, I was over in Clayton, New Mexico, which was downwind of all of these wildfires we're having here in northern New Mexico. And I snapped some really nice images, even on my iPhone, but they're all high resolution. And it's of this time in history of the sun, beating through this awful smoke on this desiccated landscape. It's like it would have a lot of value as stock imagery, in the desiccated West in this period of continuing drought. If we created a product that was stock media driven, that was for sale by other media outlets where they might be interested in buying NFTs as much as publishing those NFTs. I wonder if there would be a market for that, right? And that could be anything. It could be literally anything. It could be polar bears on a melting iceberg. It could be wildfires, burning a town. It could be, you name it, right?
I mean, I think you could actually simplify that idea. And yeah, I mean, I could see setting up basically the Web3 version of Getty Images, where the whole thing is just a platform where photojournalists, photographers can upload whatever they want that they're willing to, sell as stock images. You can set the terms, you can set the prices,
Mm-hmm.
and people pay in crypto, and it's there you go. I wonder if that already exists.
And then you could do them as editions so that there's a scarcity baked into it. So there's only 25 editions of the image you shot, Troy, and then, let the Gettys of the world, arm wrestle it out for those editions. And then their resale would be high too, because once you sell out those 25 and CNN wants to run it, they're going to have to go, bang on Getty and be like, hey, I need your image. Like, okay, here's, here it's X amount now. It's 3 times as much. And then the royalties come back into the treasury and to the artist.
Sure.
Yeah.
I love that.
Open,
I love that
Ocean
model.
Protocol is already doing this with the data marketplace for data, and OpenCurrent.io. I just did a video for them explaining Web3 fundamentals, and they're doing this with the market research groups, and anybody that is a contributor to that market research group and the document that results from it. If anybody bought the results of that market research, all the contributors are paid for automatically through the sale of that, because they all contributed and they are marked on the blockchain as contributors. So whenever the bill gets paid, it automatically gets dispersed out by the smart contract.
Mm-hmm. Cool. We should develop that.
I like it.
Or maybe you could
name
use that type of platform, and then maybe the platform has some similar functionality that you could just add like a photo upload feature to it or something. I don't know, but it might be worth exploring a conversation with somebody that's already built a platform similar.
Right. What was the and I know you've shared this with me before, but the second one you mentioned, what's the name of that one again?
It's Open Current. It's OpenCurrent.io.
Right. Okay.
There's no E in it.
I did look at that one. Okay. I want to get that in my notes. Cool. And so Crystal, what do you know about because it seems like, Unlock factors into, they have some utility for like everything we've talked about. How does the new subscription model work, or the subscription product? Because I looked into it, I didn't fully understand the mechanics of it.
I sat in on some of our, I sat in on all of our team meetings when they were talking about this, and I didn't understand any of it either. So I need to go in and read the documentation, and then if we have deeper questions, I can just, I'm still active in their DAO, so I can just ask the devs or ask Julian to explain it to me like I'm 5 years old, because he usually has to do that with this technology a few times until I understand it. I can't remember, there's some sort of thing that they put into the contract that will then talk to the wallet as far as doing, monthly subscriptions. And I have no idea the mechanics of how that works.
How do you make the bridge between the content that you're trying to put behind that NFT paywall and their platform? You know how that works? Is it like,
so it's not even so Unlock isn't even a platform, it's just the protocol. So basically and this is the issue that I'm still researching or trying to figure out. And there's been a few artists that have already figured it out, so we could just ask them. But the issue is where the content lives, what server. Right. It's on IPFS, right. And then making sure that when the protocol calls in the NFT content that is accessing that IPFS properly to bring the content in.
Okay, so the assumption is that the content is on IPFS?
It could be on Arweave too. I mean, it could be, I think, on just about anything. I would, as decentralized as possible. So IPFS is just the one that I would trust. And I think Julian is friends with the people that built IPFS. So to me, that just would be the one to use. But I'm also not familiar with Arweave and how decentralized it really is. So.
Okay. All I know is that Mirror uses it. That's about all I know about it.
That's how I know about it too. Because I was like, where's
Okay.
my content when I put it on Mirror? And they're like, Arweave. I'm like, oh, okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I think so, and this is like something that's literally been on my to-do list for like a month now, is like, I want to actually go through the process of, you know, I want to take like some of my reporting, put it on IPFS, and just like try to figure like what are the tools that can be used. Maybe John knows what are the tools that can be used right now to basically try to kind of set up something analogous to what Keith was building with Streamer. Like, can that be done with existing tools? I mean, I'm pretty sure it can. I just don't know how unwieldy it would be, or what the different moving parts would be.
I used Pinata, and when I was playing with it, and I totally screwed it up. So I'm not really the person to ask about this because I break all the tech. But I used Pinata, and then they have a service, I think it's $20 a month, where you can, and I can't articulate this properly, but where you can pin the content in a way that it stays within IPFS in a certain, like, it doesn't disappear, doesn't move around. I can't remember exactly what you call it. And that way, when you set up your NFT, you're using that link. And Pinata for me was the middleman, because I'm still partially in Web 2 world, to get it from my computer onto IPFS. There's probably an easier and direct way to get from the computer to IPFS. I break all the tech. So I need to be handheld as I put things onto servers. So.
It's funny when you start to like look into these questions and like try to execute practical use cases, and it's just like, wait, nobody's actually built this tool yet. You know, it's like it's crazy. I'm like, okay, so I have to like find a command line to upload. Okay, you know, it's wild.
Yes, same.
All right, so it sounds like Crystal, I think you and Keith are going to. You're planning to meet sometime later this week to talk a little bit more about the founder NFT, I think.
Yeah, and we'll dive deeper into both of those concepts too, the NFT and the collective.
Very cool. Well, did anyone have anything else that we wanted to get into this week? Now I want to go figure out, like, I want to go try and find if anyone's doing the thing. I mean, it gets tough with putting images on the blockchain, right? But now I want to go see if there is like a stock image thing on a blockchain anywhere.
Yeah,
Cool.
that's
So,
something to consider is, do you want the actual image to be on the blockchain or just a reference to the image? Because if you're putting an actual image to the blockchain, that can get kind of expensive because of the data it takes. That's why a lot of these on-chain images are just like 8-bit little piece of crap graphics. People complain about NFT graphics. A lot of that is why.
Right. Yeah, and especially if we're talking about like high-res pieces of photojournalism here. Yeah, and then it's, you know, it's interesting. You get into the debate over how decentralized you want to be, how much you want to rely on a third-party server, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it seems like a thumbnail kind of idea would work. But man, I have to run, but I'm having another random thought. You know, building up this theoretical database, this library of stock imagery. I mean, it could even be the kind of thing where our JournoDAO library, let's just call it, or our JournoDAO collection, if we were to go to a prominent photojournalist who is still not web savvy, or certainly not Web3 savvy, and acquire iconic imagery from them, even if we were to pay a premium for it, we could turn that into an NFT, and then we, or the DAO, would reap the rewards of reselling that, right? Or somehow licensing it. I'm still not up to speed on the proper terminology, but it wouldn't necessarily have to be photographers who are participating in the library. We could actively seek photographers and just buy their negatives, if you will, right? Or their negative. That's an old term right there. I'm dating myself. But if you were to buy their files and essentially license them in perpetuity in all markets forever in the universe, right? Then we could essentially do with that we would. And we could make that an NFT with our own terms. And we would be able to market the hell out of the fact that they are a prominent photographer with world famous name recognition. And if we own that, it's going to become more valuable over time, especially as they retire or die or whatever. It could become a very lucrative library over time.
I mean, one nice thing with NFTs is you wouldn't have to necessarily like buy all the rights outright, because the NFT contract can be set up in such a way that it's like, well, we're using this NFT for this purpose, and anytime it's purchased, it basically automates all the licensing.
Right.
So, we could just, rather than having to give us all rights, they can just say like, I give you the rights for this purpose, and you just automate, my 15% in the NFT contract.
That's presuming that artist wants to continue to enjoy the participation, but it could very well be that they just want to sell outright. They just want to, I'll sell you this image for $50,000 cash, or maybe they want to do it in Bitcoin or ETH, whatever. But if they give us everything, then it's up to us then to reap the rewards going forward, right? And
yeah, I mean, that could be like,
they don't have to continue to participate. They would have.
I mean, if you found like a photojournalist who had like some iconic image, and they wanted to basically sell or donate that for the purposes of supporting our mission, that would be like the best case scenario, right?
Yeah.
Sure. I could see.
You could also frame it to where you set up the smart contract so that it goes to their estate, so that their children and their grandchildren get the royalties as the image circulates throughout Web3 in the future. So that way, if they're at that point in their career where they're retiring or end of life, but they don't want their images to die, they can live on the blockchain forever. And then their family can benefit through the smart contract as royalties accrue through resale.
Brilliant. And that I could see that being a real having a lot of appeal when you're approaching somebody, right? Because that's like, what better way to protect their intellectual property,
right? Like, if you don't want to deal with wills or probates or lawyers, we'll just set it all up for you in a smart contract.
Totally.
That's pretty interesting.
That's awesome. That's brilliant.
Yeah. So many avenues. It's crazy. We're talking about improving probate all of a sudden. I didn't really see the conversation going that way. It's a whole new world, man.
Totally. I gotta hop. So
I gotta bow out too.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, great conversation. Thank you all.
Yeah. See everybody.
See you guys. See you, John.
Later on, y'all. Bye. Next week, my last day is May 31st. So.
Congrats, man. Hey, so are you still waiting to hear about the job?
Yeah, I am. But either way, I'm going full DAO. So Yeah.
So
So
if that doesn't work out, you just like dive into
I'm just doing it.
Bankless
Yeah.
a little deeper.
Yeah, Bankless deeper. I'm working, doing these intro Web3 videos for Open Current. I'm working with another guy that's doing some legal law podcasts. So yeah,
Right
a
on.
lot of different projects.
Good to see, man. Adios to the
Yeah.
factory.
Yeah, and yeah, exactly. And I'd like to dive in further to JournoDAO and kind of get more involved in what you guys are doing and do a little bit of Solidity and teach myself smart contract
Really?
writing. So with this NFT stuff, that could come in very handy.
Very cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's starting to heat up a little bit, I would say, in the last month or so. So
Yeah, loving the conversations you guys are having. So for sure, I like
Yeah,
the way
fascinating.
it's all going. Yeah. Right on, man. Well, yeah,
Cool.
I won't keep you, but thanks again.
yeah, see you around, man. Take care.
All right, later.